in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak, reaching you live from our studios here in the nation's capital. It's time for us to take a look at some of the stories making headway on our dailies this morning, and we're going to start with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story there says APC convention. Stakeholders perfect consensus list as aspirants intensify lobby. And the writers there say Adamu Al-Mokura, Mustafa Akume, upbeat. High-level consultations ongoing, and this is according to party sources. Sharif quits. Just yesterday, we saw the news of some, aspirants, quitting, to contest, in some of these chairmanship and other races in the APC, following the consensus reached, by the party. And then we're going to see other stories on the Daily Trust newspaper, right on the top on page 14, 2023 presidency. Saraki Tambuwal, Bala Muhammad agree on consensus. And on page 4, Zamfara hires ex-servicemen as bandits displace over 700,000 persons. That's quite alarming. You're going to see the details of that story on page 4. And then there's a pictorial there that shows you a taxi driver sitting on his car roof as he watched the chaos around the fueling station in Jabi, Abuja yesterday. You would agree with me that the queues are not, intensifying. The queues are not reducing, and a lot of people are complaining. Just as I was coming down to the studio this morning, I saw a very, very long queue, and people, it's really sad, and people are angry about this. We waited and waited, and we were hoping that, the failed queues were going to subside, but it seems like, they are becoming even more pressing and problematic for us. I really hope that the government, sees to this and brings to halt all of that, failed crisis that we are seeing. There are other stories on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. There's one about Daily Trust economists to federal government tackle rising inflation, oil sector crisis now. And then you see other stories still on the Daily Trust newspaper on page 21. Commuters angry as fare continues to rise in Abuja. Just this morning, a lot of people are actually finding it even difficult, to move from one place to another. It has become a problem that the fares are hiking, and also it's even worse that people can't even get, taxis and buses, to move, within the city just because of the fuel crisis we are facing presently in our country, and we really do hope that this comes to an end. There's another story on page 20 that says, my mosque member impregnated my wife. That's quite a very interesting story. This is according to Oyo Imam, and you'd find details of that story on page 20. It's really sad that we see, religious leaders, or the place where it's supposed to be a sanctuary is now becoming, hazard. It's becoming a problem to us, and it's really, really sad. On page 14 on the Daily Trust newspaper, Jatishanin Gombe APC reconciliation failing defections. This is according to Goje. These are the major stories you find on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and if you like to get more details, grab a copy of the paper. Let's take a look at other stories on the Punch this morning. APC convention. Southwest governors reject Buhari's allies as secretary vice chair. And then you see the riders there that say external forces trying to impose persons on Southwest, says Akeredolu. Adamu Al-Mokura, Musa divide National Assembly over chairmanship race. You find details of that story on page 8 on the Punch newspaper. And right at the top on page 30, Genco's counter NBET over purchase agreements. list 1.64 trillion naira debts. And that story is on page 30. Federal government incurs fresh 950 billion naira domestic borrowing in quarter one of 2022, and this is according to the DMO. There you go, fresh borrowings again. Saraki Tambuwal meet plan consensus candidate to lobby Atiku. You'd also see the story about Malemi OK seizure of Kyari accomplices property accounts. You'd find the details of that story on page 42 on the Punch this morning. Buhari aloof away while Nigeria burns, economy crashing, and this is according to the PDP. Over 70% of drugs dispensed in Nigeria substandard. This is according to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. That doesn't sound good. Substandard. This is devastating to our health and endangering people's lives. I really do hope that there's an investigation done in that regard. And then you see a pictorial there that shows you protesters and security forces during a demonstration in Tunis, the Tunisian capital, against the suspension of the mixed presidential parliamentary system by President Kais Saied in Tunis on Sunday. And on page 13, farmers, herders clashes. Afenifere faults planned law to make non-natives indigent. On page 5, you see the story about father of 4 arrested with 20.75 kilogram black liquid cocaine from Brazil. You know, yesterday I saw that story, and it was really interesting that drug peddlers always find a means to smuggle drugs. And it's interesting that when they are caught, you know, with this other form, they devise other means, you know, to still smuggle drugs. And this, you know, this black liquid cocaine was found hidden in a makeup kit, in a mascara. Imagine a mascara that women usually used, you know, to lift up their lashes, and then there's liquid cocaine inside of it. I was really wondering how, you know, they creatively, you know, did that to actually hide cocaine in that. This shows you how devious, you know, these drug peddlers can be. You see other stories on the Punch. Obiano's water drinking video. EFCC on a witch hunt alleges Abga. So these are basically the major stories you'd find on the Punch newspaper this morning. Let's take a sneak peek into the Nigerian Tribune and see what's happening. PDP presidential ticket. Governors Atiku draw battle line. Saraki Tambuwal Bala opt for consensus. And then you see that ex-vice president declares Wednesday, and that, you know, story is on page 2. Quite a number of interesting stories talking basically politics is making headway on the papers this morning. And then there's a special report that says 296 billion naira Abuja metro train lie idle as FCT residents face transportation woes. You'd also see other stories. Reps may seek judicial interpretation of Electoral Act judgment. We're going to be taking a look at that a little later. You'd also see DMO speaks on Nigeria's public debt. You see the details of that story on page 4. Consultation, I beg your pardon, Constitution Amendment. Afenifere cautions NAS on indigenship. Police ban personnel from demanding customs papers, tinted permit. Some would say that's good news because a lot of people, I'm sure, have stories of such encounters where police ask you for tinted permit and then custom papers. And, you know, this really is not their jurisdiction. They're not supposed to be checking such papers. Banditry created 700,000 IDPs in Zamfara. This is according to Matawale. We're also seeing that similar story on the Daily Trust newspaper, and it's on page 37. Flood displaces 7 communities in Niger. And then NDLEA naps father 4 with black liquid cocaine at Abuja airport. over 60 children down. Over 60 children down as outbreak of measles hits Benue IDP camp. My goodness, it's going to be devastating in an IDP camp with the crowd. I really do hope that there's an intervention done in that regard. Maybe vaccinations, because vaccines seem to help, lower the intensity of measles this day. It used to be really, really bad. Chicken pox, measles, all these borne diseases. Vaccination seems to lower, their effects, and I really do hope that there's some form of intervention done in those, IDP camps, because these places are, breeding grounds and one of the most vulnerable, place for such, disease, to break. You see other stories on the Nigerian Tribune also that says APC convention, governors, senators split over chairman, youth leader. And then the writers there say Southwest governors endorse Kekemeke Omishori for vice chairman, national secretary. Modu Sharif withdraws from chairmanship race. Senators divided over Adamu Musa Al-Makura. Party in disarray in Gombe. This is according to Goji. And then there's a pictorial there of a very large crowd of a protest in Spain over fuel, food, electricity price hike. Thousands protested, in Madrid on Sunday over soaring prices of food, electricity, fuel, among others, exacerbated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It seems we're not alone in this. Spain is also going through similar situation we are having down here in Nigeria. You would agree with me that times are hard, things are hard, there's no fuel, food prices are hiking, electricity also is now a problem. We saw, the shutting down of our national grid, although there have been reports that have been fixed, but we still have other pressing issues, going on in the country presently. Well, that is that. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning and see what's happening there. APC convention, Southwest picks Kekemeke Omishori. Akeredolu warns against interference. Aspirant screening failed to hold yesterday. Then senators splits on Musa Adamu Al-Makura. You'll find the details of that story on page 4 on the Nation newspaper. And right at the top on page 8, unions to cripple varsities. NAAT begins strike. SSANU, NASU warms up. And then on page 8, you see the story about Buhari, federal government reviewing Southeast security. Obiozo's house attack flayed. Policemen not authorized to check customs papers. And then also the story about 700,000 IDPs in my state, Governor laments. And that's on page 8. Tambuwal Bala Saraki ready for North's consensus candidates. Controversy rages on overzoning in PDP. You see also the story about share deals put 20 directors on stock market blacklist. These are some of the major stories on the Nation newspaper this morning, but there's a pictorial also there that shows you ex-Eagle stars honor Tinubu at 70 with novelty march. Well, some would say that's a form of eye service. Well, some would describe, that as that. Vessel held over suspected crude oil theft. 2 arrested for bikers' murder. That's quite tragic. If you want to get the details of that story, you can grab a copy of the Nation newspaper this morning. Well, these are some of the stories making headway on some of our dailies this morning. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking some more. You stay.
But in a situation where you find that a look like
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that